Welcome to the Going Ballistic podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Kleckner. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about gun stuff, kind of like we talk about every time, but I think I'm changing the format a little bit as I go. I started the podcast thinking it was going to be a chance for me to share little nuggets of information or little mini lessons. And sometimes I would talk about current events or things like that, but as we've gone along, even though this is only the 14th episode, I'm having more fun doing some of your user questions, listener questions that you guys are sending in. I'm having fun talking about those, and I think those are some learning points there too. And you guys are learning as we follow along with the build. So, you know what? We're winging it a little bit here, and I kind of like that. Keep the feedback coming in. Let me know what you guys like to hear, what you guys want me to talk about, and hopefully, as we figure out where this is going to go, a few more podcasts, we'll be on track. So this is episode 14. You can find out more about the podcast by going to the podcast's website at goingballisticpodcast.com/the show's number. So for example, since this is episode number 14, you can find out more about this podcast at goingballisticpodcast.com/14, the 1 and 4, the actual numbers. It'll have notes and maybe some of the links that we talk about in the show, and you can leave comments there. You know, and speaking of comments, while we're at it, the name of the show. I thought Going Ballistic was going to be this really cute, cool name, like, oh, it's ballistic and we're going ballistic. But you know what? Sometimes I get excited about these topics, but I don't exactly go ballistic. So maybe it's not even the best name after all. I have a couple other names I was thinking about changing it to, but I don't know. You guys tell me, is it too late to change the name? If I should change it, what should I change it to? Either way. Unfortunately, we can't have Jason with us again. He and I's work schedule are just not meshing up. It's a bummer. I love having Jason on. I know you guys do too. I just talked to him a couple minutes ago, and he said to go on without him, but that he would join us as soon as he can. For those of you that have ever been shooting with me, or that know me, or that have read my book, you know that I take firearm safety very seriously. Sometimes I get accused of being a little too worried about safety, which I'm not quite sure is possible, because I've still done some amazingly fun things with firearms. I've just done it where nobody that wasn't supposed to get hurt got hurt. I guess that's the safest way to say it. So firearm safety is extremely important, and it is your absolute responsibility not only to pass along the joy of shooting and how to learn shooting to other people, but first and foremost is to pass along safety. So if the person you're going shooting with has never been around a firearm before, even if they have, you should always start with the basic firearm safety rules. I mean, I would happily risk offending somebody by going back to the basics and making sure we both understand what the rules are and how we're going to handle firearms at the range. I even have a blue gun and a couple other practice guns, which aren't really firearms at all. They're just pieces of plastic that I find helpful to work with the person. Either if it's a friend of mine coming over to my house before we go to the range, we can talk about what we're going to do with the firearms when we get there so they know what to expect. They're not overwhelmed with all the noise and everything going on. So, again, from my book, if you've read it, the Long Range Shooting Handbook, I really appreciate the support if you have. We're not quite 9 months with the book being out yet, and we've passed 9,000 copies sold. Way more than I ever expected would be sold. And now that I'm thinking about with the next book coming out, I've had to change a few of the things, speaking of name changes, like the Facebook page and things like that, and trying to focus more on maybe just being my name as what you look for so that the other book titles can all fit in there. If any of you guys are social media experts, I'm not. Reach out to me and tell me what I'm doing wrong, and let me fix myself. So with the firearm safety I was talking about, it's not just treating all guns like they're loaded. It's not just always pointing the firearm in the safest direction. It's not just keeping your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Firearm safety also happens while you're actually shooting the gun. I'm talking about eye and ear protection. Now, I'm guilty. I will sometimes shoot without eye protection on a bolt gun. Not right. I'm a hypocrite. You should always be shooting with eye and ear protection. Even with the bolt gun, things can go catastrophically wrong. Sometimes I just don't do it, and I need to be better at it. But the eye and ear protection is so important, and yet people like to skimp on it. Skimp by meaning they just grab whatever's handy, and they have these scratched up nasty glasses, or maybe the sunglasses they're wearing, they look really, really cool, but they distort the image at the edge of the lens when they're tilting their head down to look through the scope, and therefore they're going to have problems. or the ear protection is either so quiet they can't hear anyone else at the range, which, by the way, can be its own safety issue if you can't hear range commands or somebody talking to you, or they're not good enough protection at all, and you end up with ringing ears after the range and permanent hearing damage, like many of us have. So, I've been asked often what I recommend for eye and ear protection, so we'll start off with that. I love Smith Optics for the glasses. So, full disclosure, they give me a pro deal, so they take care of me, but they don't pay me, and they're not a sponsor, an advertiser, or anything like that. But I love those sunglasses when it comes to shooting. They are the most optically clear, true lenses I ever shoot out of. Meaning, when I have my head tilted, even at extreme angles, at the edge of the lens, I see no distortion or bending in the light image as it goes through. I just love them. And they came out with some tactical line of glasses. I can't even think of the name. That shows that they're not a sponsor. They have some wraparound sunglasses that maybe aren't the coolest looking, but then again, I'm not trying to look cool. I'm trying to protect my eyes. That have flat metal arms to the sunglasses, and they designed those with the entire feature that they fit under earmuffs without pinching your head. Genius. I mean, I've spent many, many, many days standing on a range teaching students. When you have earmuffs pinching into arms of your sunglasses all day, it can actually get very annoying and painful on the side of your head. So just those small little features that Smith has thought of in some of their glasses, I love. Check them out. They're not in any of the stores you go to in the mall, unfortunately, because they're not owned by the Luxottica conglomerate, but you can check them out online, REI, stuff like that. Give them a shot. If you like them, let me know. If you don't like them, maybe keep your opinion to yourself. I'm just kidding. If you're in the market, check them out. I've had good luck with them. Now, for ear protection, I've gone through, I think, 4 pairs of Pelters. I don't like them. I'm sure it's a great company. Maybe they'll have other great products that I haven't tried. I had Pelters in the military. I liked those. Those were nice. I could plug my radio into those. I had nice volume control. They were very durable. And matter of fact, I didn't break them. I did a lot of stuff with that ear protection. I still never broke them. However, the civilian model, the sporting model, I guess you could say, of the amplified hearing protection, which I strongly believe in, especially if you're an instructor or you're a new shooter, because you can actually hear what's going on. I can turn up the amplification on my earphones, and I can hear people at the other end of the shooting line mumbling to themselves that they're having a problem. Or I could hear constantly with sniper students on bolt-action rifles, I can hear when that bolt is empty. When they run the bolt quickly and it's not picking up a new round, I can hear the difference in the sound, so I can run over and watch them and see if they're going to flinch. So I really like the magnified hearing protection, and it keeps me from running around screaming all the time because my own voice isn't muffled. But those Pelters kept breaking. I couldn't get more than, 6 months out of a pair. It could have been the Arizona heat. It could have been me sweating in them. It could have been the use. I have no idea, but for how expensive they were, they kept failing, and I kept seeing everyone else's failing too. And I got upset that I was paying so much money for them, so I finally just decided, I'm not going to waste my money on these anymore. I'm just going to buy the, Walmart Cabela's brand earmuffs for the amplified sound, electronic earmuffs, that aren't near as much money. They don't look as cool. But you know what? If I'm going to be throwing them away anyway, I'll just do those. So I ended up picking up the Howard Late Impact Sport or Impact Plus, whatever. Howard Late Impact something. They are awesome. They're so great. I've actually bought a second pair for no other reason than to keep in my range bag in a case to lend out to people. Because the first pair I bought, I still have. I think it's been 5 years now. They're the green. Again, you'll recognize when you see them because so many people use them. They amplify louder than the Pelters did for me, any other brand I've tried. They have an auto shut-off for the sound, which is something like after an hour or 2 hours, if you don't adjust the knob at all, they shut off automatically, which has caught me a couple times, but it's not the end of the world. And it has saved me tons of dead batteries. You can still plug your MP3 player, your iPhone, or whatever you want into them if you want to listen to music. They are awesome. So I should probably put a link up. Matter of fact, I will go to the podcast webpage or go to my webpage at ryankleckner.com, and I'll figure out a way to put a link up there or start selling them. Because these things are awesome, and I think everybody should shoot with them. I even shoot a bolt gun with these things on. I can't say enough about accidentally stumbling across the regular old Hunter brand earmuffs that are just the best thing going. So check out those Howard Late. I think you'll appreciate them. So for those of you that have been following along to previous podcasts, my cousin Jason and I were building his precision rifle. We were spending a few episodes going through each section of the rifle and talked about each of the components and some of the considerations therein. We still aren't done yet, but we haven't been able to continue because Jason's not on. But I can tell you he's done. He got the last part sent for me a couple days ago. It's all put together. We're waiting for him to go out and do the accuracy test. I'm excited, so is he. And of course, we'll let you guys know how it works out. And we will post an entire build list of all the parts and components he used. Now, I already have some people asking Jason or asking me for some of the components. So I'm already picking up a bunch of the JP barrels. If you want to start following along, chime in, let me know. I'll send you a link on the website or where I can put them up for sale. And we can start getting maybe a group purchase of some of the barrels if you're interested. And start your own AR-15, a precision rifle build. But there's another contest, or there's another build that Jason and I were doing that turned into a contest. And that was the cheapest possible AR-15 we could get. We were just talking that it was nice to get the absolute best AR-15. What about the opposite end? And he was going to make one. And I was kind of picking on him for it. But why in the world would you want to go out of your way to build a piece of junk? And he said, I don't know, it just might be fun. He kind of got hooked on the idea of building, because if you all remember, he was a little hesitant about having the skills or the tools to be able to build his own AR-15. And now that he sees how easy it is, he's kind of hooked and he wants to build some more. So we were both talking, and I thought he couldn't get under $500. I don't think he did either. We thought getting under $500 would be a challenge. Now, if you go to somewhere like a Palmetto State Armory, you can see that they'll sell upper and lower kits already put together. And if you just buy those kits and assemble them at home, you would have an AR-15 under $500. I'm not saying that you couldn't find one, just every time he and I looked at the parts, it seemed that you could never compete with those folks that were putting the kits together. So I looked at those Palmetto State parts. I've even purchased a complete lower from them with Magpul accessories, I think, for $139. You can't buy all those components by themselves. So I figured if we're going to buy them by themselves, there's no way you can get under $500. But I'll tell you what, we both easily broke the $500 mark. So let me go over the rules that I mentioned last podcast so that you guys know what our contest was here. The first rule we had was the lower must be stripped. That is to stop us from buying one of those pre-assembled kits. So the rule number one, the lower must have been a stripped lower. The second rule was the upper must not have the barrel installed. It didn't need to be stripped because so many of them already come with the forward assist or ejection port cover in there. But the barrel can't be installed at the upper when you buy it. Number three was if the part belongs, it must be used. So for example, if you bought a barrel that didn't have a threaded muzzle, you don't need to buy yourself a muzzle device now. Or if your upper receiver didn't have a spot for an ejection port cover, then you didn't need one. But if it does, you do need one. The components must be available to the general public. That's because Jason knew I would just call up and try and get a few buddy deals and get some free parts. So everything we did and the list you guys are going to see for our builds, which I will publish for this podcast, you'll have our complete parts list for this podcast. You can go see exactly what we built, including links to where you can purchase the items for yourself if you'd like. You have to be able to get the same parts for the same price we did. No auctions, that kind of goes into the same components are available for everybody. You get the one-off auction on eBay that isn't available to anybody else. That's not very fair. We decided not to include shipping and tax. Now, we did that because even though it's not the true lowest cost, because those are going to be more expensive, he's in Arizona and I'm in Tennessee, and we would either be penalized or rewarded based on where we were in the country, for shipping or taxes. So we decided to normalize it and take that out. And then we had a function and accuracy test that the rifles must meet, because he knows I was going to build a big piece of junk, so just to try and win. So we had to make it shoot 2 magazines in a row without a malfunction. That includes the bolt locking back both times at the end of each empty magazine. And then we gave an accuracy test. We said it must be able to shoot a 10-inch group at 50 yards using bulk commercial ammo. I didn't remember that being the rule. I actually thought it was a 5-inch group at 50 yards. Matter of fact, I think at least it should be that. That's a 10-minute group. That should be fine to do. So maybe I'll just go back and change the rule after the fact, because I think we're both going to do fine with that. So 10 minutes of angle, the gun must be able to hold within a group. Now, the cheapest rifle that meets all those rules wins. Well, we spent a while, I think it was a couple weeks, going around buying the components, and we were tempted to maybe wait till after Christmas or something and try and get some parts on sale. But we both realized real quick with the elections coming up that maybe it wasn't a good idea to wait to get our components. So we both hurried up and went and got everything we needed. And they are all built except for one part. Jason just told me that the last part he was putting on was his handguard for his rifle. This just happened, I think, today. As he was tightening his barrel nut onto the upper receiver, the barrel nut was so cheap, it just stripped the aluminum threads right out of the barrel nut. So he's got to find something else. So when you see his build list, it's not going to be accurate. He's already going to have to replace either the handguard or at least the barrel nut. But it lets you know that's what we're dealing with, the cheap parts. So it's not working yet. We both agreed that if a part breaks or doesn't work, that you can replace it and find another source. But you can't go cheaper. You can find something for the same price or maybe higher, but you can't see a better sale than to just buy that. So here is Jason's build. What he did is he did a Lake Tactical, which is the company that he used for his upper and lower. They're built upper and lower for his precision rifle build. And I think it's a 5% off discount. I forget the number they give listeners if you call in and say you heard about them from here. Jason loves these folks. They look like they're doing some great work. So he went and got a lower receiver from them. It was a Blem, but it's available to anybody that comes in the store or calls in. They can buy the Blems. He got it for $50. That was a good deal on the Blemish lower receiver. He got his lower parts kit from Brownells. Matter of fact, a lot of his stuff was from Brownells, I think. So lower parts kit from Brownells. He got it for $44.99. The buttstock he got from Primary Arms. It came assembled with everything. That was $50. He got a upper receiver. It came with the dust cover and the forward assist already installed. He got that from Soda Arms, SOTA Arms. Again, there'll be links for everything. $68. He got his bolt carrier group from Primary Arms for $80. Palmetto State Armory was his barrel. He got it for $80. And his barrel was a non-threaded barrel, so he got me there. By not having the threads on the end, he didn't have to get a muzzle device. And you can see some of the parts he got. I mean, Amazon.com is where he got his handguard for $27. And you'll see the rest of the list. Well, he went with a $18 red dot optic that he got on Amazon. See, I was going to go with iron sights because I was thinking first, iron sights would be the cheapest way to go instead of an optic. But sure enough, you can get some ridiculously cheap red dots. And even though he got his for $18, mine was way cheaper. It's actually a complete piece of junk. And you're going to have to wait until the next podcast for me to let you know if it actually worked. Because I've already gone out to the range and started my function and actually testing for my AR15. But you see some of the parts and the prices that Jason got. So his grand total for a complete AR15 built at home, minus the fact that he's going to have to upgrade his handguard to something else, is $449.69. That was pretty good. We were both concerned that maybe you couldn't break 500, and Jason did it. He got down to about $450. Now, my AR-15. I went extremely cheap on a lot of the parts. Now, Jason admitted that he wants to keep his AR-15, where I am going to give it away to you all. So I want to give it away to somebody as a chance for a fundraiser for the charities. I haven't figured it out yet, but some people give me some good ideas, and I'll talk about that next. So he may have made a choice to have something a little bit nicer because he had to keep it, where I got the junkiest, most Frankenstein-looking Palomino horse put together AR-15 I could possibly get because I wanted to win so bad, and I thought it would be more hilarious to give away such a junky rifle to somebody. I'm sorry, but maybe you'll have a good story. If you are the one that wins this rifle, you can pull it out of your safe and say, look at this. This was part of the competition. So I went with a polymer lower. I ended up getting one from Tennessee Arms. It's a bright pink plastic lower. I got it for $42.99, so I saved some money there. Some of the other things I got really cheap. I also got an inexpensive barrel for $69 from Wise Arms. I'd never heard of them. Wise Arms actually had some really cheap stuff, and I got a few things from them because of how cheap it was. So let's see. For a bolt carrier group, I got from Primary Arms, I got a $75 complete bolt carrier group. I couldn't believe how cheap some of these things were. On CDNN Sports, I got a full buttstock kit for $39.99. My lower parts kit was $37.99 from Wise Arms. That's extremely cheap. And I will not, without giving away the rifle, I will tell you the lower parts kit was great. It all seemed like it was in spec. It all went together just fine. I mean, for $38 for everything, including the grip, I was really impressed. I think it was a good kit. Well, my grand total compared to Jason's $449 rifle is $378.54. I was afraid of not breaking $500, and I was able to break $400. So $378 AR-15 looks exactly like you'd expect it to, like a piece of junk. You can go look at my Facebook page. You can go look at my Instagram. I put some pictures up there for people to laugh at. It has a little 3-inch handguard. Because, again, it had to have a handguard, but it didn't say it had to be long enough. Just had to have something to hold the rifle with. The red dot I got was $8.40 from Amazon.com. There's a little NC Star red dot. And even when it's mounted and tightened down, you can just wiggle the rifle and watch the red dot flop back and forth. It is a cheap piece of junk. But then again, I was trying to win and get as cheap as I could. So we'll tune in next time and we'll let you know how both Jason's and my rifle shot and maybe who won. Because even though I'm cheaper on price, if my gun can't work, then it doesn't count and Jason would win by default. So we'll have to see from there. So I'll put the list up for you guys so you can see the comparison. And if you really want to build a piece of junk rifle like I did, have at it. You'll have the list there. So for the giveaway, I had someone mention a really neat idea. They wrote into me on Facebook. They said that they have a local group of guys where they'll do raffles and they'll just use Powerball to do it. And I kind of like that idea. So what I'm going to do is I think maybe when I sell my 10,000th book as a big celebration, what I'll do is I'll give the rifle away. And I can't have all the spots be sold because, as most of you know, I'm a lawyer and I got to follow some of the rules. So when you do, raffles or giveaways, you got to be careful. You can't always have, purchase only. So I have to have some way for you to get in without purchase. And I'll have, all the legitimate rules up there. But I decided for some people that don't want to give a raffle ticket to charity, what's another way you can get in? And you know what? I think reviewing the book somewhere might be a good way to do it. Now, notice I didn't say a good review. If you think my book was horrible, then put a horrible review. I'm okay with that. I mean, let me know what I need to fix. But I'm waiting on you guys for feedback, that if you put a review of the book somewhere to help me spread the word, whether that's your forum, that's your group of people that you work with normally, and you send me a screen capture of it, that I would count that as your entry, for the rifle. Using the Powerball idea limits it to 69 spots. So maybe I'll have to make the raffle tickets kind of steep, so people don't just buy a bunch of the raffle tickets and before you know it, all 69 spots are gone. Or maybe that's not a good idea at all. Who knows? You guys write in. You guys send me emails or contact me and let me know what you think some good ideas might be. And we will get this El-Cheapo build given away. And because I'm an FFL manufacturer, when I built this rifle, I had to mark it. So it's actually marked appropriately. It has, it is actually, wow, this is the first rifle. This is the first Kleckner rifle. For those of you that know, I'm coming out with my precision rifles, which are coming along great, by the way. I was going to come out with a high-end rifle line, and without even meaning to, my first rifle in my books. So not only will this be the piece of junk rifle you can say you got from this podcast competition, you now will actually be able to say that you got the first ever Kleckner rifle, because it is actually marked Kleckner as the manufacturer, Nashville, Tennessee, and the model name is El-Cheapo. So serialized, marked, everything. It is maybe a collector's item, who knows? You'll end up with the very first ever Kleckner rifle that is just embarrassing to look at. So let's see how that works out. So for the podcast feedback, for people that wrote in, let's get to some of the questions. We had Kyle follow up. He sent some emails before asking about scope offset and left-handed rifles, and he asked me what I thought about building a left-handed AR. Sure, do it. I mean, if you're building the gun for yourself, absolutely. The whole point of building these guns is for a project and to tinker and tweak it and have it completely unique to you. Why in the world would you go out of your way to build something that's not exactly the way you'd want it? If it's within your budget. Now, if you're building it for the idea of reselling it maybe someday and getting your money back, maybe left hand's not the way to go, because you're not going to have as many people to sell it to. But if you're building it for yourself and you can get left-handed parts that'll work, that'd be awesome. Do it. You might as well build it to suit you. That's the whole point, right? So Scott wrote in. Scott sent me an email and said he had two questions for me. One was how to paint a rifle, And the second was, what bipod length do I recommend? Well, how to paint a rifle. It is much easier than you think. As a matter of fact, I'm a big believer that the uglier it is, the cooler it is, right? So in the military, you get the new guy has all his gear all perfectly painted and all nice and camouflaged and brand new, and that just shows everyone that you're the new guy. So it's actually kind of nice when everything gets beaten up a little bit because it shows that you've been around. I remember on one of the deployments I went over to Afghanistan, we were trading off as some of the Rangers that were there were kind of high-fiving as they were walking out, we're coming in, and their rifles were just beat to hell, and mine was all brand new and freshly painted, and they're like, look at that rifle, look how fresh that paint is. And sure enough, the same thing happened in the next changeover. Mine was all beat to hell for the next time. So it's kind of a funny thing to have happen. So I'm one of those guys that doesn't like a fresh paint job. I like it when it's scratched up. And if you guys have seen some of the YouTube videos I did for the NSSF, you'll see my rifle in some of those videos as camouflage. Now that rifle is about 12 layers deep of paint. Because I'd paint it, and then a few months later it gets all scratched and beat up, and I'd touch it up, or I'd do a whole new paint job all over again, or demonstrate for students. And so you'd see different layers of scratches through different layers of paint. And another reason there's so many layers is you have to update your camouflage. So you go to a really green environment from where I was teaching out in the desert in Arizona, it's time to break out some paint and maybe darken the color up a little bit. So a lesson we won't get into now, but when it comes to ghillie suits and camouflage and stuff like that, the person that makes the Chewbacca ghillie suit with all the burlap and tries to make themselves all this perfectly camouflaged isn't going to hide very well. They're going to look like a big pile of burlap. And good luck wearing or carrying something that obnoxious. The best way to camouflage instead is to always update your camouflage and use the natural things around you. So, a proper ghillie suit, maybe only 30% full of that burlap, which we call jute, those strings, and the rest of it is open space and netting and rubber bands. It looks like you're kind of a molting bird or something with all the open spots. Because in the open spots, you put the natural vegetation. Well, similar to the rifle, you do the natural vegetation for the ghillie suit because you're always updating the camouflage as you move. Well, same thing with the rifle. If I'm going to a different environment or a different hunt, put some more paint on it. Who cares? Now, what kind of paint do I use? I liked the Krylon camouflage brand. So I think you can go to Home Depot or Walmart and actually get Krylon brand camouflage. I would usually get the tan, a few cans of tan, and only 1 or 2 cans of the dark brown and the green, because it's mostly going to be tan for what I like to do. And the reason for that is, even in dark environments where it's really green and lush, normally under the green and lush, you find the tan. You have the dead pine needles on the ground, you have the dead leaves, you have something that's going to be a tannish color on the ground, and then some of the green overlaps for it. So you have a solid green rifle that's not going to match in with the ground when you're down there laying on the ground. The other reason is, if you have something light, it's easier to make it dark. But if you have something dark, it's really hard to make it light. So I would take women's hair ties, like for ponytails. It's the elastic bands for the hair, but it's also the kind of the cloth texture to the outside of it. I don't know how better to describe it. You would wrap those up, double or triple them up on your bipod legs. And then if your bipod legs are down, you can take vegetation and stick them in there, and it makes the vegetation stick straight up against your rifle on both sides, and makes kind of like a little vegetation shield to be able to look through and shoot through. It works out pretty well. But I do the light camouflage, and then I can always make it darker. So what I would do is I mask off parts of the guns I don't want to get paint on, obviously. So I'm going to take my scope lenses, and I'm going to cover the housing, not necessarily on the lens, but the housing. I'm going to take a couple layers of tape across both of them. Go a couple directions. You want to make sure you don't have anything leaking through. And then go ahead and put your scope caps on even over the tape, just to make doubly sure. 1, you want the outside of your scope caps painted, but 2, you do not want paint on your lenses. I then take a little bit of the masking tape, and I split it in half, or I'll wrap it around one of the turrets, and I'll take my pocket knife out and score it, and take the rest of the tape off, so only maybe the bottom 1/4 inch is masked off, so I can see the numbers and the marks, but the rest of the cap can get paint on it. That's for my elevation and windage. Now for my parallax adjustment, or my target focus on the left side of the scope, I don't mask it off. And some people say, well, what if you need to see the numbers? You need to see the dots. No, you don't. You know how you adjust your parallax and your target focus? You adjust it by looking through your scope at the target. So if you're looking through your scope at the target, it doesn't really matter what random markings are on the knob. And as many of you will figure out, those markings don't really match up to anything usually anyway. So I'm not worried about it. If you are, fine, mask it off. I also mask off the magnification ring, and not only the ring where the numbers are, but also the dot. Tear off a little piece of tape and put it on the dot so that you can see where the numbers are supposed to line up to. For the bolt, I like to take the bolt and either take a chamber guide for cleaning, which is kind of like a plastic bolt that goes in, put that in its place to mask off the inside of the receiver, or I'll just take the bolt and wrap the bolt handle in tape where it's exposed. You put too much tape on there, you're not going to get your bolt handle in, but I don't like painting the bolt, and I don't like paint getting into my receiver. If you've seen, again, the videos, I like to run the bolt quickly. So I like a smooth bolt almost above all else. And when you put paint on there, it gets all gummy and nasty, and who cares? If someone's actually looking in your chamber, I think they found you anyway. So if the animal can see your bolt, maybe you have other problems other than whether you should have painted your bolt or not. But I like the bolt handle to be painted. I've seen some people mask off their triggers. I don't really worry about it. I'll take an earplug, a foamy earplug, and stick it down in the safety hole on a Remington 700 to kind of keep the paint from going down there. I'll take the foamy earplug and stick it at the end of the barrel. You know, it kind of protects the crown a little bit and then getting paint down in the barrel. And other than that, you've kind of masked it off. Stand the rifle up by, holding onto the crown and put the buttstock on the ground and paint the bottom first. And just take the light tan and just coat it. Solid coat with the light tan all the way across the bottom. Then you can lay the rifle down and then you can paint the sides and the top and just cover it in tan. Let it dry for a little bit. Don't be mixing a bunch of colors of paint when they're wet. And come back, and you can get as fancy or as not as you want. I've just gotten to the point where I take the dark brown and just do some diagonal stripes at different angles from kind of far away. I like it kind of misted, not exactly a solid line. And I'll take the green and do that, and that's about it. I'll make it look just kind of ugly and break up the pattern. You don't want these intricate designs. That's not only does it not work any better, I think it looks a little silly. So just some kind of breaking up the shapes with some random colors. That's all I do. I let it dry, I take the masking tape off, and I go shoot the gun. And I don't care that it scratches off, because again, I think it looks kind of cool. And if I don't like the paint job, and next time I decide to paint it, I'll change the paint job. And do I take the paint off? No! I just let it build up. Maybe someone somewhere is screaming about how horrible that is for the seals of the scope, or why you should only do something like a Cerakote. Sure. Maybe they're right, I just don't care, and I've never had a problem with it in all the years I've been doing it. That's how I do it. I think for my custom rifles, I'm going to be offering something a little nicer, even though I think the Krylon's clearly good enough. I don't want people to be getting as premium of a rifle as they're going to be getting from me, and then just have some random rattle can paint job on it. But I've even struggled with the idea of my rifles. I don't know if I'd want to show up to the range with them. So I got to really figure this out, because I like showing up to the range with a sleeper rifle. I like pulling out a beat up gun with a underpowered scope and a whatever case and grab the ammo and lay down on a bag and just shoot and outperform people that are showing up with, wind meters velcroed to the back of their hand and ballistic calculators and their iPhone and all this cool high-speed ninja gear and awesome expensive rifle and scope. And they've done everything they could to try and buy themselves into some skill, and they can't shoot. So I kind of like that better. But there's also something nice about having a nice rifle. And so I'm having that struggle on my own, and I'll figure it out someday. So that's how you paint a rifle, Scott. Now, bipod length, I like as short as possible. So if I'm going to use bipods, I like the plain old Harris bipod legs. They've done me well. I like the 6 to 9 inch model. I think that's about the right length for just about anything. If you need to get higher than that, I'd rather use shooting sticks, or I've used trekking poles before. Or, as most of you know, I really like to shoot off of a bag. So bipod legs, the problem with them is every surface you shoot off of is different, right? You shoot off of grass, the bipod legs bounce and react differently than if they do off of concrete, or off of a plywood roof, or every other surface. Now, the bipod legs are handy. I treat them like a kickstand for my rifle. I go set my rifle down, I drop the bipod leg. And I'll often shoot from them. But if I really have the time and the situation warrants it, I shoot off of a bag almost every single time, because it's a consistent platform. It allows me to have all my gear and ammunition right there within arm's reach, right in front of my face. I think it can be very stable. And if you can see some the pictures of the stuff I've done, I'm shooting the bag at some extreme angles sometimes, and the bag allows that. Matter of fact, this is October 28th, I'm recording this. Recoil Magazine just put a cool picture up on their Instagram of me shooting at a really steep angle downhill. And you can see my bag that I use in there. And you can actually see the rifle. That rifle's a preview prototype sample of essentially the rifles I'm building. So go look at that picture. If you like that rifle, That's what you'll be getting as one of the collecting rifles. But you can see how I'm using a bag there and tucking it in tight to me. It's just extremely useful. So bipods, I go short. If you need longer, use trekking poles. I'll discuss in the future podcast how to use those. Use a tripod, with a rifle mount. Do something else, but I don't want these really long, flimsy, flexible, bouncing, giant bipods on my rifle as a standard practice when I'm hunting or shooting. I'll use that as the exception to the rule and keep the short ones on all the time. So Mark also wrote in with a question that ties into this. He asked me what ruck or bag I used in the military. Was it internal frame or external frame, or how cool it was? Well, Mark, I had a lot of cool gear. So I actually felt bad for some other members of the military. I have a story that I will tell over beer, how I felt bad for some of the Marines that I met there that were guarding a gate in Bagram. I think it was our first deployment, maybe second, I kind of forget, where we were walking through the gate, and as we're talking, as he's going to let us in, because we just landed in the helicopter, I could see he was trying to see us in the dark. And I had to ask him, do you even have nods on? Like nods or night vision devices? And he goes, oh, no, we don't have any. We only have one pair of nods for our squad. What? You have one pair for your squad? He said, yeah, we have one pair of 7 Bravos. And those were the, Cyclops looking out the front. You both eyes looked into it, but only had one eye, out front to pull in the light. They're old technology at the time. I'm thinking, oh my God, you have to share one of those per squad? How does that work? I had a pair of PVS-14s on my face, which were the smaller monocular night vision. And I had an extra set of PVS-14s in my rucksack in case those broke. And so I thought that was horrible. I mean, I wasn't giving them mine away, I guess, so I didn't feel that horrible. But I thought it was horrible that certain soldiers or Marines would have certain equipment and other ones didn't, when you're out there actually in a war zone. So I was very, 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 very fortunate to have all the rifles and all the cool, sexy, high-speed gear that I had. But you know what? What wasn't really high-speed was my ruck. I had the standard military Alice Pack ruck is what I'd carry around. Now, I had a 3-day assault pack, we'd call it. We had from London Bridge Tactical or Trading, London Bridge Trading Company. I don't know. It was really cool. Everyone in regiment had them. I kind of wish I kept mine. I would have paid for it. That was a cool backpack. So we used those, but whenever I go on big missions, I needed a big enough ruck. We would just bring a regular old green Army rucksack, what we call a big Georgia tick. It sticks to your back and it sucks the life out of you. And it would be obnoxiously heavy. I mean, obnoxious, obscene, some other adjective I can describe here of how heavy it was to walk around with that thing, because the problem when you're on a sniper team is you are everybody in the platoon. You are your RTO, you're the radio guy, so you have to carry a giant full-size radio that the radio operator would carry, plus a bunch of batteries, because you're going to be going somewhere for a day or two, and the batteries don't last very long, plus antennas, plus who knows what else goes along with that, which takes up already, 30 pounds and a bunch of space in your ruck. And then I would have cameras, full-size, like digital cameras with giant lenses. I had one lens that it was a 100mm lens with a giant carbon fiber sunshade on it. We used to jokingly call it the Hubble lens because it looked like a Hubble telescope. I would have a lens or two for cameras. I would have wires and batteries for that. I'd have, the satellite antennas for other things. Then I'd have a rifle and ammunition and parts for that. And then I'd have a spotting scope, which was not small nor light. And that's just the basic hardware equipment that I needed to have. Now we're not talking GPS, we're not talking laser rangefinders, we're not talking night vision devices, we're not talking anything else. And we haven't even gotten into, things for me. A jacket, warm clothes, some food, some water. Before you start just putting all that together, you can imagine how much weight there is. So people would ask if I have a sleeping bag or something like that. No, I didn't have a sleeping bag. I mean, it would have been nice to have one, but where in the world are you going to have room to put one of those in? I'd probably bring a Gore-Tex cover or a rain jacket or something, and there's maybe a little more spooning than we'd like to admit to keep warm at night. But you never had enough room for anything. So, Mark, I wish I could tell you I had this really cool bag with all these cool pouches and pockets, but really I didn't. I just used the standard ruck, which, by the way, really works awesome as a platform for a rifle. And that external frame really helps distribute the weight well. I have a picture from the military with a very sad event, actually, of a dog I had to put down. That maybe I'll share the story some other time, but I have a picture of me with that ruck, and I carried the dog back because I was so sad about having to do it. Some of the dogs there. So I've had some obscene, extreme weights in my military rucksacks, Mark, that I carried out there and I shot with. So I hope that answers you guys' question. Remember to give me some questions. Remember to give me some feedback about the rifle giveaway. Yes, you have the chance to win the crappiest rifle I've ever put together, but at least it's Kleckner rifle number 1, and you can have that, and you can see pictures of it. Remember, if you check out the podcast website, I will have posted both Jason's and my build, so you can see the math and see how I kicked Jason's butt in the contest. But you're going to have to wait till next week, because if my gun blows up when I pull the trigger, Jason kind of wins. Or if my gun doesn't work, Jason automatically wins. It doesn't matter, just the cost. So I hope you guys are excited to see how they turn out. I also hope Jason will have a chance to shoot his precision rifle by then, the AR that we built for him, and he can report back with how great it is or how somehow it's not working and we need to diagnose it. So again, everybody, I appreciate the support. If you like the podcast, tell somebody else about it, or at least tell me what I'm supposed to be doing, because I love listening to podcasts, but I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm kind of winging it. So you do know what you're doing? Tell me, so I know too. All right, everybody. Have a good time. Stay safe out of the range. And until next time, this is Ryan Kleckner for the Going Ballistic Podcast.